Hello, everyone, and this is my review for Monday Night Raw on February 13th, 2017. And, you know, this show, man, this show, Monday Night Raw, is definitely turning into one of those shows where moments happen. And they happen either for better or for worse. It's going to be one of those thought processes from here on in. You can definitely tell they're trying to make the show based around moments, and that's what you got tonight, by the way. But let's go ahead and start off with how they start off the show. You had Stephanie McMahon come out. She was about to cut a promo, but gets interrupted immediately by Roman Reigns and a chorus of boos. I'm sorry, Roman. Kind of. Actually, I don't mind you. I know there's a lot of other people that don't mind you, but there's a lot of fans that do mind you a lot. But he comes out saying he wants Strowman, and this is something I actually like. It's no joking, no anything. It's just Roman Reigns saying, "I want this guy tonight," just wanting to be a badass. Just go out there. I want to fight this guy, and that's all it is. But here's where the next interruption came in, and this was kind of an interesting choice in this one. The club interrupt Stephanie McMahon and Roman Reigns, and basically incorporated a handicap match that was made. And this is where I think a lot of people have problems with Roman Reigns. Is how he's depicted. Is how he's depicted in these 2-on-1 situations. He was depicted in a way that, well, basically made the club look weak, made the tag team champions look weak in every sense of the word. He was sure he overcame and fought them off, but in a 2-on-1 situation like this, and with how everything is going, why not have Roman eat the pin in a 2-on-1 handicap match? Make your tag champions look good, and make him have to struggle. It made it feel like he didn't have to struggle for anything until a little bit later on in the night. But here he should have to fight back. He should have to struggle in a situation like this. But he didn't make it look like he was struggling at all inside of this match, and then was able to just fight off both tag champions like they were nothing afterwards. It's just, I think that's where most people have an issue with Roman Reigns, is just how he's depicted. I think he's fine in the ring. His promos are getting better, but now how they're depicting this character is that he seems to be mostly unstoppable in any way, shape, or form. And that's just how they want to depict him now, like at the expense of a 2-on-1 handicap match. Like I said, he had some issues later on in the night, but yeah, I wish they would have had him depicted as having to struggle in something like this, and it just didn't come off that way. And I think, like I said, I think that's where a lot of people's issues are with this particular aspect of everything. The match ended in DQ with the handicap match with him and the club, by the club just not exiting the ring in that one, and Roman was able to fight him off afterwards. So that's how that one went. Up next was Bo Dallas going up against Kofi Kingston. This was a rather short match, and New Day's going around this whole aspect is like they said they had blueprints for the aspect of making ice cream, or getting something with ice cream going. It was getting ice cream chance and everything in that sense. So maybe we're gonna see WWE ice cream bars at some point. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind it. Wish they would have done it a few years back when, I don't know, they teased it the first time. But that match with Bo Dallas and Kofi Kingston, that was one of the other aspects of being out there, was a match with Bo Dallas. This match was rather short. I like the aspect of Bo Dallas here garnering the heel heat that he needed for this one. He was able to steal the blueprint plans for the ice cream machine, or whatever they were going to be doing with it, and just rips it up in front of everybody. Now, in all honesty, the way that New Day was depicted throughout this entire aspect, it was like, yeah, they were kind of making fun of, they were almost heelish in this one. It's just an aspect that they were going after a heel in Bo Dallas in that sense of everything. But Bo Dallas destroys the ice cream plans and then gets destroyed himself by Kofi to a rather short match. But afterwards, nothing happened of it. The New Day just celebrate the victory like nothing happened, even though they did have this spot outside where Xavier Woods and Big E were crying over the plans and everything in that sense. So yeah, that was a little bit weird to go along with. The start of the show was rather weird and interesting. You had some good spots to this, and like things ramp up at the end of the show. Up next, you had a Neville and Jack Gallagher promo backstage. It was started off as just Neville cutting his typical heel and by the way, very good style of heel promos from Neville as of late. And Jack Gallagher interrupts. I felt their interaction was pretty good here. I like how Neville is kind of brushing off Jack Gallagher like he's nothing to him. In the sense of everything, and they're trying to build into, he promoted his match with TJ Perkins on 205 Live for the next night, saying that, TJ Perkins poses more of a threat than Jack Gallagher does, and of course Gallagher rebuts in there, and then he has a match with Noam Dar. Jack Gallagher wins that match. Not a bad match. Gallagher, going through his typical spots and everything in that sense. Basically building to what would be his Cruiserweight title match at Fastlane. Neville comes out afterwards. Gallagher stands there like he's ready for a fight, but it's pretty much just a stare down. Nothing much to it. Just kind of trying to build that tension without necessarily having them come to blows or anything in that sense. Up next was the Emelina debut. They've been promoting it for so long. And then Emelina comes out and talks briefly and says, you saw the makeover from Emma to Emelina, and now you're going to see the makeover from Emelina to Emma. And just walks off. You know what? I'm going to go along with this. I kind of like this. This was not bad. On the sense of, you could tell, the way that Emma was coming, or Emily, I guess I'll call her Emelina for now until she goes back to being Emma. Or it could be a running gag where she either is going to do a makeover from Emma to Emelina, and then Emelina to Emma, and then Emma to Emelina again. It could be really dumb. Or it could be an aspect that she goes back to the whole evil Emma gimmick that she was doing before she got injured, and that's how they're playing this off. To go along with this, to kill this whole Emelina thing. And you could tell in the voice is she went into that more heelish style voice. When she says, now you'll see the makeover from Emelina to Emma. And we'll see where that goes off, and let's see how long it takes them to do it this time, because it took them 17 weeks to have her come out beforehand. Let's see if it, continues on going like that. Up next was a promo for Bayley, basically saying that this match, her match with Charlotte for the night was going to be the main event of the show, and basically promoted it as such. In typical Bayley terms, I did not mind this promo as much as some of her other ones. She's definitely had some interesting, I won't say interesting promos, but it's definitely not been what you saw on NXT since she's come up to the main roster. And it's not an aspect that she's not either delivering them the way that she did down there, or the script kind of thing that they give her for the show doesn't necessarily work towards the character. But like I said, some of Bayley's promos since she's come up to the main roster have been a bit off. Outside of that one, there's been a couple. The one that comes to memory was really good was her promo with Stephanie McMahon. And I like the aspect that she brought up, the whole aspect of Stephanie not wanting her on Raw, didn't think she belonged. And her promo tonight flowed a little bit better than most of her other promos have, and that definitely came off in this one. And we got a lot of promos here going on. Up next, you had Jericho and Owens. They were backstage talking about the whole Festival of Friendship and everything in that sense. And Triple H comes in basically, and he calls for Kevin Owens to come with him, and then shoves off Jericho, saying, "I just need to talk to Owens," and everything in that sense. A little bit of foreshadowing, because they also had a backstage spot where you didn't hear anything. You didn't hear them saying anything, but you saw Triple H and Kevin Owens just talking to go along with it. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. On the show. Up next, though, was Braun Strowman going up against Mark Henry. Strowman goes over big in this match. I like how they depicted this match. It was a good big man match. A decent big man match. I know those matches usually don't come off well, but this definitely puts over Strowman a little bit, a lot better on the aspect that he dominates Mark Henry for a period of time, and then when Mark Henry gets the upper hand and goes for the world's strongest slam, he can't finish him off with that because he had been punished too much, and then Strowman hits him with a running power slam to get the win. I thought that was a good way of putting him over in this one, and that's a way you put over a big man. It honestly is, and it makes him come off looking more like a monster and every facet of that. So I ended up liking that one in the end. Roman Reigns comes out afterwards, looks like he was going to gain the advantage, but Strowman lays him out and basically puts him, leaves him laying, leaves him where he basically should have been with this whole handicap match he had earlier in the night. He should have been left laying to finish it off. You had an Enzo and Cass and Sheamus and Cesaro segment that stage. It started with Cesaro and Sheamus helping Bayley get ready for the main event match of the night, and then Enzo and Cass come in, and they kind of have their back and forth with this one. This was an interesting segment. Mostly because it's quote unquote two face teams going at each other throughout the entire night, or at each other's throats for this one, for what happened last week during the tag team title match. And it actually worked out here, because the way that Enzo and Cass kind of came off was a bit heelish tonight versus at least in their promo side, versus with Cesaro and Sheamus kind of being the ones that got screwed over on that sense of it. So that's how they kind of depicted it. I felt like that's how they depicted that tonight, and it came off rather well. The promo from Enzo and Cass I thought was all right at that time, and it's set up for a match later in the night with Cesaro and Enzo Amore, which I'll talk about in a few moments. Actually, we'll just go ahead and talk about it now, because it was pretty much a squash match. Cesaro going over. Enzo in this match, man. Really, it was only one spot. Actually, it was only one spot. It wasn't that bad in the end, but he messes up going over the top rope. Really early on in the match, like he just runs into the top rope, and it's like, oh wait, I'm supposed to go over, and then jumps over the top rope. It didn't look all that good. But otherwise, the match was fine. It was pretty much a squash match with Cesaro going over. Enzo and Cass, of course, cut their promo beforehand. Crowd gets behind it a bit, but you could tell they get behind it. They got behind the catchphrases. Like the promo itself that he was cutting on Cesaro, they were I wouldn't say booing it, but they weren't like, people like Cesaro and they don't want you to talk trash about him and everything in that sense, but they got behind the typical catchphrase stuff with Enzo and Cass to go along with it. So it was an interesting way of that coming off, and actually I kind of liked how the crowd reacted to that. They went with the catchphrases, but the rest of the promo was like, why are you talking trash about Cesaro? We like him, type thing. So it was an interesting way of depicting everything that night. And I like how at the end of the match, Sheamus was talking a bunch of trash to Enzo. Cass gets in the ring, and Cesaro is the one trying to hold Sheamus at bay and everything to go along with it as they get rid of as Enzo and Cass leave. So yeah, it was a very interesting one. So this brings me to the Samoa Joe interview. I've always known Samoa Joe to be a good promo. I've seen it in the past with him. Like, he knows how to cut the intensity, but he knows how to also bring himself as like that cool, calm, collected guy who's just there to beat the crap out of somebody. And he depicted that in this interview. It was this interview was great. This promo from Samoa Joe was just all around great, and there's nothing bad to really say about it. I like the aspect is like every time Michael Cole mentions something about like just Triple H or something in that sense, like Samoa Joe gets a little bit more angry with everything because he's not talking about him. He even brings it up on an aspect of like what was one of the things that he goes with. I like how he makes the comparisons, like, you know, whenever someone has a relationship with Triple H in some way, shape, or form, it seems to always go sour. How's this going to be different for you type moment? And his answer was perfect. It's like, I'm here basically to just destroy things. Or like beat people up and make a bunch of money. It's like, he didn't necessarily make it as the typical I don't need friends type thing. I'm just here for money, but he's here to just beat the crap out of people. But that's what he was saying in the end. But it just felt it like coming from him, you believe it a little bit more than what other people actually go with. And he said, like, when he said about those things, like he said the difference between him and all those other guys like Shawn Michaels and Seth Rollins and all the other guys was that now Triple H has somebody he could depend on. All those guys needed to lean on Triple H. He can depend on me and being the destroyer and everything in that sense. And you just got that throughout the entire promo that like he like with certain questions he was like, he even scares Michael Cole a little bit. It's like, you know, I'm hearing a lot of this talk about Triple H and I know this is supposed to be talking about me here. And then, like, Michael Cole's like, oh, we'll go to a different subject here for a few moments. And it's hard to really convey this promo perfectly to you. I would say, like, if you haven't watched it yet, I would recommend going to watch it because it comes off great. Joe comes off believable in the aspect of what he is supposed to be. And it was one of those things, like, you have to watch this one because it came off really good. So up next was Sami Zayn going up against Rusev. This match was basically Sami Zayn having to play comeback at every facet. Rusev is in control most of the way until Sami Zayn hits a haluva kick kind of out of nowhere. You know, and it will be interesting to see if they play off this thing with Rusev having to have the nose guard for his broken nose. They play off of something like that, like that's costing him matches because he has to continually readjust it and can't necessarily see because he was in control the entire match. He gets Sami Zayn out of the ring and puts him back in, and as he's getting in, he gets hit with a haluva kick to lose the match. Sami Zayn going over. Sami Zayn cuts a promo afterwards, and one of the aspects behind Joe's promo is that, like, one of the things he says is like, I'm here to destroy. I'm here to beat up and put people on the shelf and just destroy people. I'm not here like I'm not happy to just be here like Sami Zayn is. So, Sami Zayn brings that in there, and not out of nowhere, but Joe's music hits, and Sami Zayn gets attacked by Samoa Joe, and Joe just lays waste to Sami Zayn, making you feel like they're going with since they can't go with a Seth Rollins versus Samoa Joe program with Seth Rollins being out with a knee injury. It looks like they're going with Sami Zayn for the time being, and you know what? I wouldn't mind this because I feel like these matches would be really, really good. In every sense of the word. I feel like these two guys can put on a really good match. Matter of fact, they did down in NXT. They had a great 2 out of 3 falls match down in NXT just last year. And I feel like you can get something really good out of this program, especially since, like I said, with Rollins being out for the time being with the knee injury, though it doesn't seem like he misses WrestleMania, but he's gonna miss a good chunk of time, so he can't necessarily work a program with Joe. So Joe's going to move on to Zayn. at this point. This is a good this is a good way of going. Sami Zayn kind of has that empathy, and Joe is there to just destroy. Like anybody who mentions his name and what he would call an area of disrespect, he's just going to go out there and destroy them. Again, Joe comes off very believable in most cases. Up next was Akira Tozawa going up against Arya Daivari. You know what? I'm liking Akira Tozawa. He's good and crisp in the ring, and he seems to get the crowd at least getting behind him. Maybe not in every sense yet, but when he's doing those like yells and those yas and the yells that he does in the ring, the crowd gets into it a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more throughout the night. That was one thing that he did the week before, and he got over, and he's still kind of going with that, and you could definitely tell the crowd is getting into that a little bit, at least that side of it. They're not fully buying into Akira Tozawa yet, but I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. I like his in-ring, and he seems to have something to at least get the crowd behind him a little bit, which could help him out down the line here. Of course, Akira Tozawa goes over here. Yeah, Brian Kendrick on commentary saying that, you know, Akira Tozawa is like his protege and everything in that sense, even though it's like not even close to being that. But that's how the storyline is going to go. So that's kind of how they're working a program with Akira Tozawa and Brian Kendrick down the line here. We'll see what they do when they do something, whether they do it on Raw with both of those guys, or they do it on 205 Live or something in that sense, with the terms of a match of some kind or some way, shape, or form down the line here. Up next was the Festival of Friendship. This was better than I thought it was. The whole aspect of the stuff that Jericho was doing, I like the aspect of how Kevin Owens was out there. It's like almost wanting to have nothing to do with it in any way, and kind of underhanding comments, like compliments to Jericho's stuff that he was getting with the art pieces and the art. Oh my god, the art piece with the Atom was oh my god, that was too good. That aspect was way too good, and whoever ended up making that did a good job with that one. That was well played. And of course they had a TV in the middle of the ring showing just the Festival of Friendship. I like how they had it in the Vegas sign, but they also had a maple leaf on there because both of them are Canadian. I like those aspects of it. They get to a point, it's like Jericho's going to call out Goldberg, and they get Gilbert in there in every facet. And it's like, this is where Jericho, or like Owens is kind of like, I thought the whole aspect was to get Goldberg out here so we could beat him up. And it's like, nah, it's not what it was actually about. It's just Jericho trying to say how much of a friend he like how much Owens means to him as a friend and everything in that sense. And this brings to the final spot where it's like Jericho's giving gifts to Kevin Owens, and now Owens is going to give a gift to Chris Jericho. And it was a new list. The list of KO. And Chris Jericho was on that list. And KO just waylays and just beats down Jericho in every sense. So this is going to be an aspect of maybe they're going to do a thing with the authority, like maybe not the Authority, but Triple H is going to do something to try to help Kevin Owens with Goldberg instead of having Jericho around. And that was the whole aspect of that talk, with a foreshadowing of, it's like, you need to get rid of Jericho and everything in that sense, because of, you know, Triple H got him the title initially, and now he's here helping out again. Now Jericho can be put on the away side or something in that sense. But he basically beats down Jericho. And I saw something a little bit later, it's like saying something about karma, where they actually went back with the whole aspect of everything. Shawn Michaels putting Marty Jannetty through the barbershop window a long time ago, way back in the 90s. Then you had the Jericho spot where he put Michaels through the TV when they were doing that angle back in 2008. And then Kevin Owens putting Jericho through the TV tonight as well. So they were playing a very heavy injury angle for Jericho. He gets power bombed on the apron, gets thrown through the quote unquote TV or whatever the screen was that they had set up inside of the ring for the festival of friendship thing. I was not expecting them to do the turn tonight. I thought they were going to wait a little bit on this one. So having to kind of come out of nowhere was a good way of going. You didn't really expect them to do it. You expected the tension to build, the tension to build, the tension to build. And then, like, one of them actually cost the other something, like Jericho cost them the Universal title or something like that. But they do it tonight. And it makes me feel like that this match with Jericho and Kevin Owens actually needs to be for the Universal title. Like, having him turn before the Goldberg match makes you feel like something's going to happen in the Goldberg match that's going to allow Kevin Owens to keep the title, maybe not have Goldberg lose, but, you know, he keeps the title in the end. And that's what the WrestleMania match is going to be. It's going to be Kevin Owens and Jericho for the Universal title. It would be a good way of going. At least that's how I feel it would be a good way of going at this point. But we'll see where they go with everything. But, man, having the turn come out of nowhere, that was pretty good. That was a pretty good one. I'm not going to lie. I did in doubt enjoying that segment. And it came off... It came off feeling like, okay, they're setting up this match for the pay-per-view. Or not for Fastlane, but for WrestleMania. And like I said, now made it believable that maybe they'll have that be for the Universal title as well. Instead of having Goldberg and Brock Lesnar be for the Universal title. Which honestly could be a match that they could still go with. They could still go with that, but they made it a little bit more believable that maybe Kevin Owens is going to walk out of Fastlane with the Universal title intact. Or they could just have Kevin Owens get squashed and they fight over the U.S. title or something like that. But like I said, this segment made it almost believable, is that like they need to have the Universal title on this program to go along with it, because you knew the program was coming, but you expected it to happen after Fastlane. They did it tonight, and it came off really good in the end. So this brings us to the main event of the night: Charlotte versus Bayley. Charlotte versus Bayley. You know what? I'll go off and say this match was better than the Royal Rumble match. I felt like the Royal Rumble match never fully got going. The match was good, but it never fully got going. This match did get going in there. They were coming up with spots in the match that weren't necessarily full on high spots. You had a few of those in the match, but matches that was like, or spots in the matches in the match that was like, it was garnering heat towards either a Bayley comeback or garnering heat against Charlotte or something in that sense. These two put on a damn good match. I like the aspect of Charlotte working over the neck after whiplashing Bayley throughout the rest of the match, and it just came off really good in the end. Now, here's the issue. Here's the issue with the match, because the match was good, regardless of the outcome of the match. In there, on the aspect of it, the main issue is, are they going to go the exact same route they did with Sasha and Charlotte? Because Bayley won, by the way, which it got a nice pop from the crowd and everything in that sense. I like the aspect of the celebration afterwards with Bayley going through the crowd and everything in that sense as well. I thought that was great to go along with it. But are they going to go the same route as they did with Sasha and Charlotte, which was now Bayley winning the title on Raw only to lose it on pay-per-view? Are they going to hot potato it with that aspect? And it would lead to believe, the way they've done things with the women's title on Raw, that yeah, they probably will do that in some way. And you did have the aspect in this match at the end. By the way, Dana Brooke out of nowhere. I mean, I know Dana Brooke's like not been written off as Charlotte's protege, but she hasn't been seen for some time. But shows up here, causes a quick distraction, and even causes like a little bit of interference to make you feel like Bayley was about to lose the match, only to have Sasha Banks come out, take out Dana Brooke, and hit Charlotte with a crutch to go along with it. That which caused the victory in the end for Bayley. So I guess the aspect is like, okay, Sasha doesn't come out until Dana Brooke actually comes out and gets involved in the match. She causes a distraction, but when Bayley has the figure 4 on Charlotte, she also rakes Bayley's eyes, which allows the figure 8 to be applied, and that's when that's when Sasha comes down, takes out Dana Brooke, and then hits Charlotte without the referee seeing. And also, well, technically Bayley on that aspect, because she plays the super baby face. She doesn't necessarily want help out there in that sense. So she doesn't see it either. And then hits the Bayley the belly to get the victory. Like I said, I feel like the moment for Bayley winning the women's title should have been safe for pay-per-view. I feel like it should have been. Though they can play it off the aspect that she did win with interference on there, so you don't necessarily, you don't have the big one-on-one win, because there's like other factors out there to go along with it, and maybe they could save that for later time on pay-per-view. But it just makes you lead to believe again that they are going to go the same route that they did before with, you know, back when Sasha was going up against Charlotte. You know, Sasha would win on Raw, then Charlotte would win it immediately back on pay-per-view. And it makes you lead to believe that's where they're going with this again. I mean, we'll see where they go with it, but maybe they do the title change on Raw next week. Who knows what they're going to do with it in that sense. But it makes you lead to believe they're going to do something just to keep the pay-per-view streak going, but also Charlotte winning the title back and everything in that sense. Overall, like I said, good match. I would have saved it for pay-per-view. I personally would have saved it for pay-per-view on that one, but overall, good match. And like I said, this is why Raw is becoming like a moments show. Like, you get moments like that. Like, you don't fall on the aspect of always expecting it to happen on Monday Night Raw, but now you're beginning to expect it with Monday Night Raw with the women's title changing hands or something in that sense. It was good that they put them in the main event because they put on a high-quality match. And, like I said, Bayley does win it in the end, but, again, it makes you feel like they're going to go that route of Charlotte losing on Raw, wins it back on the pay-per-view, loses on Raw, goes back to the pay-per-view, wins it again, or something in that sense. So you're kind of expecting another hot potato moment with the title, and we'll see where they go. We'll see where they go about with it. They might go a different route, but we'll see that when we believe it. And like I said, it's also good seeing Bayley still getting over, because the crowd popped big for the win too. And we'll see how everything plays off in the end. I mean, overall, this week's Raw was not a bad Raw. You got some moments in there, and you got some unexpected stuff to go along with it, so that's always a good way of going, to go along with it. And it wasn't like, oh, this is a swerve just for the sake of a swerve. It's like, oh, that was very unexpected, and like, we're expecting this program to happen in some way. But now they're going like all in with it now, and it also throws aspects out there of maybe adding different little touches to them down the road, especially with the Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho feud that will probably happen. If they do it fully right, Jericho probably doesn't show back up until after Fastlane, and plays off of like an eye injury or something like that. For a period of time, and we'll see how they go with that. But overall, not a bad Raw this week. I personally would have saved the Bayley title win for a pay-per-view to end the Charlotte's pay-per-view streak, but they go with her winning on Raw tonight, and we'll see where they go with everything with having Bailey have the women's title here down down the line here. But overall, not a bad Raw this week. And that is I'm stumbling over my words here at the end. And that is my review this week for Monday Night Raw. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a great day.